When Ava told me I'd never move on, I believed her. Not because she was right, but because at the time, she made it sound like a curse. Like her words were something eternal, wrapped around my heart with barbed wire. We were together for 3 years, 3 intense, passionate, and ultimately destructive years. She was the kind of woman who could make you feel like you were floating one day and falling off a cliff the next. And me? I was the idiot who kept climbing back up for another fall. When it ended, it wasn't quiet or mutual. It was chaos. Screaming, accusations, broken glass, and one final text from her that read, "You'll never move on from me. I'm the best you'll ever have." I wanted to prove her wrong, but for a while, I couldn't. Every time I went on a date, I'd compare them to her. Every time I tried to sleep, I'd replay our last argument like a song stuck on repeat. I couldn't block her number, couldn't delete her photos, couldn't stop checking her social media even though it hurt every time I saw her out with someone else. I told myself I hated her, but deep down, I missed her. Months passed. I tried therapy, new hobbies, even moved to a new apartment. But Ava was still there, in my head, in my habits, in the spaces she left behind. I didn't date anyone seriously for over a year. I became the kind of person who smiled less and slept less. But then, one random Sunday morning, something changed. I met Lily. She was sitting at a coffee shop, headphones on, drawing something in her sketchbook. I don't know what came over me, but I walked up and asked if I could sit next to her. She looked up, smiled politely, and said, "If you don't mind me not talking much." That's how it started, no fireworks, no drama. Just quiet, simple moments. We met again the next week, and the week after that. She was calm where Ava was chaotic, steady where Ava was stormy. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I felt like I was heading towards something real. Slowly, the ghost of Ava began to fade. I stopped checking her profiles. I deleted her messages. I even stopped thinking about her when I passed places we used to go. It was like the weight had finally lifted. Lily became my peace, and I didn't even realize how much I needed that until I had it. A year later, I proposed to her. It wasn't extravagant or dramatic, just the two of us at the same coffee shop where we met. She said yes through tears, and I swear, for the first time in years, my chest didn't ache. It felt light. Free. But as the wedding plan started, something in me itched, a thought I didn't want to admit. It wasn't anger or nostalgia. It was closure. I wanted Ava to know she didn't win. That I had moved on, deeply and truly. I wanted her to see me happy. Not out of spite, but because she was the last person who told me I couldn't be. So, one night, after the invitations were printed and stacked on our kitchen table, I found her old contact. I typed her name into my phone, hesitated for a second, then addressed an envelope to her last known address. It was reckless. Maybe petty. But it felt necessary. I didn't write a note. Just the invitation, our names in gold foil, the date, the venue, the proof that I had moved on. I sealed it, dropped it in the mailbox, and didn't think twice. At least, not until a week later. That's when the first strange thing happened. An anonymous number texted me, "So you're really getting married?" My heart skipped. I hadn't seen that number in nearly 2 years, but I'd know the tone anywhere. It was Ava. I didn't reply. I told myself not to. But she didn't stop there. A few hours later, another text came in. "Does she know what you did?" That one froze me. I didn't know what she was referring to, what she thought I did. But suddenly, all the peace I'd built over 2 years began to crack. And for the first time since meeting Lily, I felt that old tension again. The one Ava left behind. I told myself it was nothing, just her trying to get a reaction. But something about that text didn't feel like the old Ava. It felt darker. More deliberate. Like she knew something I didn't. I told myself not to reply. Every rational part of me knew that answering her was like opening a door I had already locked for good. But that text, "Does she know what you did?" It kept circling in my mind like a vulture. What did she mean? I hadn't done anything wrong. Not to her, not to Lily. Still, the phrasing, the tone, it was the same Ava precision, the same way she used to manipulate situations to make me doubt myself. I deleted the text, put my phone face down, and tried to focus on wedding plans. But all day, every little thing she'd said years ago replayed in my head. The accusations, the emotional traps, the tears that always felt too perfectly timed. That night, I told Lily I wasn't feeling well and went to bed early. But I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind spinning with what-ifs. Around 2 a.m., another message came in: "You can ignore me, but secrets always find their way out." I sat up immediately. My heart was racing. I didn't know if I should wake Lily or just block the number. I finally decided to block it, thinking that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The next morning, I got an email, from an unknown address. No message, just an attachment labeled, "Congratulations.pdf." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a screenshot. It was a photo of me from years ago, sitting on a couch, shirtless, asleep. Next to me was Ava, smiling at the camera, holding a drink. It wasn't inappropriate, but it was intimate enough to look bad out of context. The timestamp was from before we broke up, but still, something about it made me uneasy. I hadn't seen that photo before. My first thought was, why now? My second was, how many more are there? I deleted the email, emptied my trash folder, and turned off my phone. But the seed of panic was planted. That day, I was distracted at work, barely ate lunch, and when I came home, Lily noticed. "You've been weird lately," she said, half joking. "Wedding stress?" I forced a smile and said yes. I told myself it would pass. That she'd get bored eventually. That she was just trying to mess with me. But then, things started getting stranger. 2 days later, Lily got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single printed photo, of me and Ava, taken years ago at a party. On the back, in handwriting I recognized instantly, were the words, "Do you really know who you're marrying?" My stomach dropped when Lily brought it to me. "Do you know what this is about?" she asked, her voice careful. I told her it must have been some stupid prank from an old friend. She didn't look convinced, but she didn't press. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I started remembering things Ava had said after the breakup, how she had stuff on me, how she could ruin me if she wanted. Back then, I thought she was just trying to scare me. But maybe she'd actually kept things. Maybe she'd been waiting for the right time to use them. The next morning, I called her number from a different phone. It rang twice before she answered. Her voice was calm, almost amused. "I knew you'd call." I didn't know what to say. "What do you want?" I finally asked. "Nothing," she said. "I just wanted to see if you'd really moved on." "I guess you have." I was about to hang up when she added, "But I wonder if she'll still want to marry you after she knows everything." My blood ran cold. "Knows what?" I asked, but she didn't answer. Just a small, satisfied laugh before the line went dead. I tried calling back, but the number was disconnected. I sat there in silence, gripping the phone until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to believe it was empty threats, but deep down, I knew Ava too well. She didn't bluff. When she said something, she meant it. Over the next week, nothing happened. No texts, no emails, no letters. I almost convinced myself it was over. Until one night, Lily got a message request on Instagram from an account with no profile picture. It said, "Ask your fiancé about last summer." She showed it to me, confused. I felt my throat tighten. Probably spam, I said, too quickly. But I knew that wasn't true. Ava was poking holes in everything I'd built. Slowly, methodically, like she wanted to tear it down piece by piece. And for the first time since meeting Lily, I started wondering if Ava was right, that maybe I hadn't really moved on. Because even now, years later, she still had the power to pull me back into her chaos. I had no idea how far she was willing to go. But I was about to find out. The next few days felt like walking through fog. I couldn't think straight, couldn't focus on anything except waiting for the next move. Every buzz of my phone made my chest tighten. Every unknown number felt like a threat. I started checking the windows at night, even though I knew how paranoid that sounded. Lily noticed. She tried to get me to talk, but what was I supposed to say? Hey, my ex might be stalking us because I invited her to our wedding out of spite. It sounded insane even in my head. But that night, something happened that made me realize this wasn't just a game for Ava anymore. I was in the shower when I heard Lily shout my name. I rushed out, half-dressed, and found her standing at the front door with her phone in her hand, her face pale. Someone had slid an envelope under the door. Inside was a flash drive and a note that said, "You should have told her." My heart nearly stopped. I grabbed the drive and took it to my laptop, despite Lily telling me not to. When I opened it, there were 6 video files, all dated from the last year of my relationship with Ava. The first few were just us, at parties, cooking, laughing. But then I reached the last file. It was filmed from across the street, through a window. I recognized the place immediately. My apartment. And in the video, Ava was screaming at me, throwing something while I tried to calm her down. She stormed out of frame, and a few seconds later, you could hear her shouting, "I'll make sure no one ever trusts you again." The recording cut off right there. My hands were shaking. Lily just stood behind me, silent. When I turned, she looked more hurt than angry. "What was that?" she asked quietly. "Who filmed that? Why does she have this?" I didn't even know how to answer. "I don't know," I said, but even to me, it sounded weak. She walked away, saying she needed air. I wanted to follow her, but part of me was frozen in place. That footage wasn't from Ava's phone, it was from someone outside. Which meant she'd been recording me without me knowing, or maybe even hired someone. I didn't know which was worse. I spent the rest of the night replaying the videos, trying to find clues, but every second made me feel sicker. At 3 a.m., another email arrived. The subject line said, "You started this." The message was empty except for another attachment, a photo of Lily. Taken recently. She was walking to her car, holding coffee, completely unaware. My blood ran cold. That meant Ava knew where we lived. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I filed a police report for harassment and gave them everything: texts, emails, photos. The officer took it seriously, said they'd look into it, but I could tell by the way he spoke that without a direct threat, their hands were tied. Lily stayed with her sister for a few days. I told her it was just until things calmed down, but deep down, I wasn't sure they ever would. I went back to our apartment, checked every lock, every corner, every camera I could buy online. I thought I was being cautious. But the next day, I got a text from an unknown number: "Nice cameras. You think that'll help?" My heart dropped. I spun around, staring at every window. I couldn't see anyone, but I could feel her eyes somewhere in the dark. That night, I left the lights on and sat in the living room with a baseball bat, waiting. Nothing happened. But in the morning, my car was keyed from front to back, the word "liar" etched deep into the paint. I took photos, called the cops again, but they said without proof of who did it, there wasn't much they could do. That was when I realized I had to fight back. I went through every old message and email I'd ever exchanged with Ava, every backup, every cloud folder, trying to find something, anything, that could prove she was behind all this. And buried deep in an old chat, I found it, a message she sent me a week after we broke up. "One day, when you think you're happy again, I'll remind you who you really are." I stared at it for a long time. Maybe this was that reminder. Maybe this was her plan all along. But what did she mean by who I really was? I hadn't cheated, hadn't lied, not to her, not to Lily. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Because there was one thing I never told Lily. Something small, stupid, from my past with Ava that I'd buried. I thought it didn't matter anymore. But maybe it did. Maybe Ava was using it now. I needed to find out how much she knew, and the only way to do that was to meet her face to face. I knew confronting Ava was risky, but I couldn't keep living in this shadow. I had to know what she knew and how far she was willing to go. I traced her last known address through old contacts and social media breadcrumbs, even though part of me knew it could be a trap. But I had to act. I left Lily with her sister, told her I'd be back soon, that I was going to settle this once and for all. My hands shook as I walked up to her door. I rang the bell, and after a tense few moments, it opened. There she was, Ava, smiling like she always did, calm and beautiful, but with a dangerous glint in her eyes. "I knew you'd come," she said softly. "I was hoping you would." I didn't respond. I stepped inside cautiously, scanning the apartment. It was just like I remembered, except everything looked staged. There were photos of us on the walls, letters I didn't recognize, little reminders of our past littered around like evidence in a museum. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Doing what?" she replied innocently, almost mockingly. "Sending the videos, the messages, the threats." She tilted her head. "I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you a chance. A chance to be honest with yourself before it's too late." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" She gestured toward a drawer, opened it, and inside were files, hundreds of photos, videos, and screenshots. And then I realized what she was talking about. Ava had been meticulously cataloging everything from our relationship, every conversation, every moment I thought was private. I froze. This isn't just old stuff," I stammered. It's blackmail." She shook her head slowly. "It's memory. Your memory. Your choices. If you want, I can show Lily everything. Then you'll see how much control I still have over your life." My heart raced. I couldn't believe it. The small secret I'd buried years ago, the one thing I never told Lily, was all she needed. It was insignificant, really, but in Ava's hands, it became a weapon. I realized in that moment that all the fear, all the paranoia, wasn't just about me. It was about protecting Lily, about protecting the life we'd built together. I had to act fast. "You've already had your revenge," I said, trying to sound calm. "I'm moving on. Leave me alone." She smiled again, faintly, like she had expected this response. "I'm not here for revenge," she said. "I'm here for the truth. Are you willing to face it? Or will you keep hiding?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. I realized she wasn't going to stop. If I wanted peace, I had to make a choice. I could fight, escalate, and risk exposing everything to Lily, or I could take control in a way she didn't expect. I took a deep breath. "You want to see who I really am?" I asked. "Fine. But you'll see me with her. You'll see me happy. That's the truth you've been missing." Her eyes narrowed slightly, intrigued. "Oh. And how will you prove that?" I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and started recording. "Because everything I do from this moment on will be documented. Every move you make, every attempt to manipulate, I'll have evidence. And Lily will always know the truth about us. About me." Ava tilted her head, considering, then laughed softly. "Bold. I like that. But do you really think that changes anything? You can't erase what's been done. I raised my chin. No. But I can show her the man I've become, the life I've built. You can't touch that. Not anymore. For the first time, I saw hesitation flicker across her face. Just a hint. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I left her apartment that night knowing the war wasn't completely over, but I felt something I hadn't in years: control. For the first time, I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. And most importantly, I wasn't letting Ava's shadow dictate my life. I drove straight to Lily's sister's house, and when I saw her, tears in her eyes, I pulled her close. "Everything's fine," I whispered. "We're okay. I promise." And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed it. But I also knew this wasn't the end. Ava wasn't done, not yet. And maybe, just maybe, she never would be. But I had made a choice to face her, to face the past, and to protect the future. And sometimes, that's all you can do. In the days that followed, Ava's presence receded, but I knew better than to let my guard down completely. The videos, messages, and emails stopped, almost as suddenly as they had begun. It was as if she had tested me, pushed me to the edge, and then decided I was no longer entertaining. I went back to our apartment with Lily, determined to rebuild our sense of safety. Every lock was checked, security cameras installed, and I created a digital record of everything we had experienced. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, but necessary. I started to realize that the ordeal had changed me. The fear that once ruled my life had been replaced with a quiet strength, a vigilance that came from surviving a storm I never saw coming. I could finally see Lily clearly, without the shadow of the past looming over us. One evening, as we sat on our balcony overlooking the city, I told her everything: the harassment, the photos, the videos, the texts, the flash drive, every single message Ava had sent. Her hands were trembling as she listened, but when I finished, she took my face in her hands and said, "We survived this. Together." That moment solidified something in me: no matter what Ava tried, she could never break the bond we had built. I sent the wedding invitations, this time confident, this time knowing Ava would receive hers as a message not of fear but of finality. I didn't expect a response, and none came. It was enough that I had moved on and that I was happy. The wedding day arrived like a gentle sunrise after years of storm. I stood at the altar, watching Lily walk toward me, radiant and calm, and I realized that all the fear, all the chaos, had led me here. Every lingering doubt and every pang of anxiety had been worth this. Ava's words, her attempts to control, manipulate, and scare me, no longer had power over my heart. When the officiant asked, "Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" I looked into Lily's eyes and smiled, my heart unburdened, knowing that the life we had built was ours, untouchable by the past. In that moment, I finally understood that moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means surviving, learning, and building a happiness that can't be taken away. And as we exchanged rings, I couldn't help but feel a quiet satisfaction, a sense of poetic justice, knowing that the woman who once said I'd never move on had just received the proof in gold-foiled letters: I had. I was free. And I had built something real. The rest of the day passed in a blur of laughter, music, and love, a celebration of resilience and new beginnings. Ava remained a shadow in the background of my memories, but her power over me was gone. She was a chapter closed, and I was finally living the story I was meant to write. And somewhere in that, a lesson lingered: no one can dictate your happiness but you, and sometimes, the most satisfying revenge isn't chaos, it's moving on.